All of this pink stuff is areas of moving sediment that's being pushed around tidally. The blue areas are pre-tertiary basement rock, and the red areas are bedrock in all of this outcroppings. So what do these seabed maps actually tell us? The tides are remixing bottom sediments. The sediments are settling in quieter waters, as they do during the quieter periods, and we have a constant exchange and influx of sediments via this tidal exchange process in virtually all of our bays and harbors, with the exception of one or two of the interior harbors that are pretty well isolated from it, like the upper part of East Sound. This plume of sedimentation that comes from the Fraser River lasts between April and August every year. So there's a major influx of sediment on about a semi-annual basis.
Makes sense.
The remixing part of it spans all of the seasons. So from a sedimentation standpoint, we're in the middle of a very complex process. Okay, let me switch to the regional long-term trends. The Canadians have been making measurements at fixed sites, Entrance Island, south of Nanaimo, there since 1938 on an annual basis. And they have instruments since 1970 that have been measuring the temperature in the water column. And so there's some long-term trend data for the temperatures of our waters over in the last 7 years in the case of Entrance Island. And you see a cyclical several cycles of trend and the suggestion of an increase in temperature of about 0.15 degrees centigrade per year, about 0.3 of a degree Fahrenheit per year. That's a suggestion because there are Pacific Ocean decadal cycles that can stretch for 50 to 80 years, not just the El Nino and La Nina, but others on top of that. So it's very difficult to tell whether this is a long-term trend or not. And from a color-coded standpoint, you see a lot more bluish down in the earlier years here in the water column than you've seen in since the year 2000. These are data again from the Institute for Ocean Sciences. This is in the southern Straits of Georgia, by the way. Okay. Back to summary finding and conclusions. The local tides here are very energetic. They do create turbulent mixing throughout the islands, shoreline processes, the marine zones. They're constantly bringing up bottom water, and hence the low temperatures in the islands. We don't have beaches here with 70-degree water in them like they do up in the northern part of British Columbia. Everything is mixed here. This is actually a good thing. The salty bottom water is the really clean stuff, despite the low but average nutrient load that it brings. The San Juan Archipelago, frankly, has the best flushed coastal waters anywhere in the 48 states. Maybe a few spots on the Maine coast have, but the currents here and the turbulence here and the Pacific bottom water being brought in through the Straits of Juan de Fuca are major additions to the flushing process here. Oceanographers measure the resident time of water as a measure of how long a specific mass of water stays around. In the lower Puget Sound, that time is 30 to 60 days that it takes for the water to dissipate, dilute if you want. In the San Juan Islands, it's between half a day and 2 days. So the residence time of water here is very, very low. There are several partial local exceptions. The northern reaches of Orcas Islands, East Sound, and to a very limited extent West Sound, are more subject to runoff and reduced flushing issues than other parts of the islands. They have a higher residence time there because the water isn't moved out quite as fast. Friday Harbor here locally has a relatively high density of urban runoff, streets, tires, oil, but it has excellent flushing in the harbor. And unfortunately still has to periodically chlorinate its wastewater treatment plant effluent because its UV system is breaking down. And that's not good. But other than that, Um, we're in very good shape in these islands by anybody's standards. Um, so above issues aside, the coastal zone runoff to the ocean is very rapidly transported to the Straits of Juan de Fuca and hence to the Pacific Ocean. And this body of information, frankly, does not support the imposition of any extraordinary restrictions on buffer zones, buffer zone extensions, as appear to be being proposed in the current CAO and SMP developments. So what can you take away from all of this? We're sitting in, I'm saying it again, we're sitting in a unique marine setting, very high energy tidal flows. We're exchanging Juan de Fuca bottom waters and seasonally freshwater plumes with the southern Straits of Georgia constantly. We have access to a world-class resource in the Institute for Ocean Sciences for both tidal flow modeling, chemical oceanography, physical oceanography, and everything else we need to know about the waters around our islands. The refreshes the waters and renews the nutrients that are in the water around our islands all year round. And the renewal time of these waters is very, very short. As I mentioned, half a day to 2 days. And most bays and harbors exchange a very high percentage of their volume with the channel waters daily. And frankly, our sedimentation processes are, again, dominated by the Fraser River plumes and all of that. It's bringing it in, it's depositing it in our channels, and it's being mixed and brought up on our beaches by the tidal action in the channels. We're very slowly warming in the, according to the whatever we can measure in the trends. And frankly, that warming trend is creating a precipitation increase to the north of us, which is going to bring higher net average Fraser River flows annually in the future than it has in the past. So 50 years from now, there's a multi-decadal prediction of a 10 to 25% increase in precipitation and runoff. With the warmer winter cycles and the freshwater outflow from the southern Straits of Georgia will become more uniform during the year and less peaked on a seasonal basis because of the snowmelt. There is a compelling and extensive scientific literature to back all this up, and that literature is there available to set a baseline for the San Juan Islands environmental updates if the county chooses to use it. Thank you.
You bet. That's what we've been saying.